Hey, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to come up with some optimal settings in real time for this microphone, the Shure SM7B, in tandem with this processor, the DBX 286S. Yeah, I know a lot of you out there are using this combination. It's popular, it's frequent, for a very good reason. It's a great way to enhance your sound for content creation, YouTube videos, podcasts, and other material. But yeah, there's a lot of settings, there's a lot to understand, and you're trying to get the best sound, but are you optimizing it entirely? Let me first say about the very end of this video, I'm going to give you all of my settings. I'm going to tell you what I think is best, but you need to understand that's from my voice, through my ears, through this microphone in this room. It may not match your best settings entirely. Your voice, your situation is obviously different than mine. So go ahead, feel free to copy my settings identically, but understand what's best for you might be a little bit different. So take all of this as kind of a roadmap. How to get to your ultimate sound. This is going to ideally get you pretty close, but more important than the ultimate settings are how I got there. I'll try and explain everything as I go. Okay, first thing to understand, I'm using the bottom 286 rack-mounted unit here, not the top one that is totally inactive. I'm also not using at all this 266XS, so basically ignore everything above this bottom channel strip right here, and below it as well too for the purpose of this video. It's also key to let you know right now that I've got all of the processing bypassed at this point, but everything is also off as well too from the compressor stage all the way over here. So right now, this unit is strictly acting as a preamp, and I've got it set about halfway between 45 and 60 dB. So if we call that 52 or 53 dB, that's where we're sitting right now. Also take note that during normal speech, 1 or 2 LEDs are lighting up. That's -20 and -10 respectively. If I get to yellow, that's 0. And I will get there some points, or at some points under excited speech, but I generally want to keep it 1 to 2 LEDs lighting up during normal speech. I've also got the 80 Hertz high-pass filter engaged, and like I explained before, all of the processing to the right is bypassed. Okay. Are we ready to start experimenting here? I'll turn the processing off. Let's begin with the compressor stage. Now, compression and this unit definitely makes the self noise of this microphone a little bit more noticeable. Let me turn us up here to about 2.5. We're at 2.5 on the drive. Let me also bring the volume down just a little bit because I'll start clipping there. Again, compression, bringing all of my volume up, generally speaking, so I need some output gain here on the very right to be turned down to compensate for that. Basically, the makeup gain at the end. Okay, so how does it sound now? I am getting 1 LED to light up there on the compressor stage. That's -3 dB of gain reduction, so that's pretty good. That, for me, is what I use with an LA2A. That's what I use with a lot of compressors. About -3 of gain reduction during normal speech. I can also tell that I'm still coming in pretty hot, so I'm going to turn the makeup gain down at the very end even more to try and compensate at the very end of this chain. We'll see where this output gain knob ultimately ends up. So 2.5 on the drive. Let me turn the density almost all the way up, and what that essentially is attack and release time. If I have it all the way up, you're going to see that these gain reduction lights, they go away quite quickly. They come and they go quite quickly with a fast attack and a fast release, as opposed to turn the density all the way down and then watch how long it takes for that light to go away when it's not compressing. Like a full second, right? So I kind of like a fast attack and a fast release for my voice under these settings. So let's dial it in at about an 8.5. And you're seeing sometimes that second LED is lighting up. That's -6, and that's fine during, excited speech. But let's leave those settings right there for now. So what do we say? 2.5 on the drive and about 8.5 on the density. Okay, so I'm pretty satisfied with that for right now. Let's get into the de-essing. Now, I know my voice is a little bit sibilant in about the 6,500 hertz range. Again, this may be different for you. I'm instantly going to dial in about 6,500. And watch if I turn this up all the way. So this sounds quite muffled right now. Quite bad, right? Because it's really dramatically cutting that 6,500 hertz range. Let me turn it down to 1K. Now you can hear how it sounds fully cut at 1K. That sounds also really bad. But back up here to about 6,500 hertz, let me turn it entirely off. You can also see there's a green light and a red light. The green light is 1 dB of reduction. The red light is 6 dB of reduction. 6 dB is a lot of reduction, so I really only want this to be taking away about 1. All right, so it was there. Maybe I just need more S's. Silly Sally sells seashells by the seashore. Okay, so I still am getting some red there. Sibilance. Okay, so now we're only lighting up the green light. So I have it at, again, about 6,500 hertz. Again, that number for you might be different. If you have a higher register, it might be closer to 7,000. If it's a little bit lower, maybe you're in the 4,000 to 5,000 range. But for me, about 6,500 is where I know it exists. And how you find that, by the way, is you kind of just make that S noise. I know that's annoying, and I apologize for that. But you make that noise, and you just kind of find where you find that noise, and you find where when you cut it, it makes the biggest impact. So 6,500, I'm only going to de-ess this thing at about, let's call it 2. Sibilance. Maybe a little bit more. Sibilance. Yeah, about 2.5 to 3. Sibilance. Okay, that's fine. Again, if I cut too much, this is just going to sound really muffled, really bad. Okay, so you just definitely do not want that. 2.5 right there on the de-esser. Okay. Then we get into the enhancer here, low and high frequency. Let me just show you what this looks like here when I turn this all the way up. And yeah, sure, if I'm on the radio right now, hey, you're caller number 10. Like, that's what that is right there. But let me turn it all the way off. That sounds completely unnatural to me. So I don't want it there. I probably want, and you're catching a trend here. A lot of the settings here are about 2.5. So let me start with 2.5, and you can hear that and understand what this sounds like. Yeah, it does have some bottom end right now. Here's what a 4 sounds like. Now, that's a lot. Now, I would also say that this is an okay setting if this is what you're aiming for. If you're doing big, boomy broadcast voice, then a 4 might sound okay. But for me, and the other thing about all these settings, what are you aiming for ultimately? Are you trying to get a radio sound? Are you trying to get a podcast sound, a narration sound? What are you going for exactly? So I'm going to go back to 2.5 here because I think that's a good enough boost to start with. And by the way, the manual on the 286S tells you that the low frequency boost is about an 80 hertz push and a simultaneous 250 hertz cut to clear up a lot of that mud to go along with the boost. And I've EQ'd a lot. That's a good place to boost and a good place to cut. Okay, so let's add some high frequency detail to go along with our 2.5 setting here on the low frequency. Okay, so now let me just listen to the self noise too, by the way. So I'm at like a 9. Oh, actually now I'm all the way up, right? That sounds really bad. There's no question about that. Here I am at a 5. To me, this is also a little bit too much. In fact, that's way too much. Okay, here I am at about a 2.5. All right, so that sounds pretty good right there. And at this point, right now that we've got some compression, we've got some de-essing, we've got some EQ going in there, let me just go back to the whole bypass processing thing, and let me give you a slight A-B comparison here. So all the processing is on. Now all the processing is off. Processing is completely off right now. This is dry. This is untouched. This is 52 dB of gain. Now watch this. Now I'm going to throw in the processing, and you can understand how the sound is a little bit different, right? It's a little bit more robust. It's more V-shaped. There is a little bit of compression going on. You can see that, yeah, just minus 3 dB right there on some loud speech. Maybe a little bit more self-noise to go with it. But this is definitely an enhanced sound right now, as opposed to this, this is fine. This is clean. but this does not have maybe some juice or some polish to go along with it, if those are the right words. Okay, then we get into the expander and gate, and to be honest, this is more of a gate than an expander to me in terms of how it sounds. Let me show you what this thing looks like. Let me actually first mess with the ratio here. I'll do about a 3-to-1 ratio to start with, and the threshold is all the way off, so we're not expanding or gating at all, but let me turn it up here to a point where I can get rid of all the self-noise. Right? It's completely silent, but now you can't hear me. I'm not cutting through enough. So let's turn the gate way down. Actually, let's turn the ratio way down. You're understanding here that you can gate and expand yourself so much that your voice is not even cutting through. It is tempting to get rid of all that self-noise, but you're cutting off your own voice to do it. So let me actually begin somewhere between 1.5 and 2-to-1 on the ratio. So about 1.75 to 1. The old trick of this, right, is to see this green light. The green light means the gate is open. So all I'm trying to do is keep turning this threshold knob until it turns red for the very first time. Let me shut up for a second. So there's green, right? You can see where it's at. It's only like one tick in. Let me turn it up and make it red. Okay, now it's red. So it's at pretty much the lowest setting of canceling out as much noise possible. This is the very first spot where it's engaged. You can also see when I talk and as I talk, it opens up, right? It turns green. But is it really cutting that much background noise right now? Yeah, a little bit. It might be, right? But watch if I overdo this here. Okay, so now it's overdone. And can you hear hear those noises? And you hear a little bit of that, what's called gate chatter. That's the tail end of me talking, and it's the compressor, the gate closing. And it sounds nice when nobody's talking, but the problem is, as I start and stop talking, there's a little bit of that. Also, there's breathing noise sometimes. See how it's a little bit choppy? All those noises right there, you get a lot of that choppy sound. So let me go back to what I think is optimal here. That's what we're here to do. I wanted to show you that you can overdo this. You're going to get that weird, scratchy sound. I used to be, as soon as it turns red, which is down here at 1 to 2 ticks in, right? So we're 1.75 to 1 ratio-wise. You can see where this knob is turned here. But I don't really want much more than that. This gate and expander on the DBX 286S, it's fine when used in moderation, but if you really start clamping down and trying to cut out your background noise, to me, it really opens up the flaws of this microphone and the sound that you're just not going to want to have. Okay, so now we've gone through everything here. And actually, the makeup gain at the very end, I didn't have to touch that. I'm pretty happy with where the levels are at, and I would say we are at about we're about -7, -8. Okay, so -8 on the makeup gain, and I like the levels it's putting out. Let me just go back here and give you the process, the processing completely bypassed. Here's how it sounds from the very beginning. And this is fine, right, for most people in most situations, but if you're really trying to add something to your signal chain, here's basically the ultimate settings, which I've come up with that I think are going to do your microphone justice, at least for my voice, again, my ears, the way I'm doing this, but I just want to share. So from left to right, let's go over everything one more time. Gained up at about 52, so that's halfway between 45 and 60. No phantom power on. We don't need that for this microphone with no inline preamp. 80 hertz high-pass filter is engaged. Obviously, process bypass turned off. I don't want to bypass all of that. The drive's at 2.5. The density is about an 8.5. I'm usually lighting up that one LED right there, -3 dB of gain reduction. De-essing for me, 6,500 hertz. I'm set at about a 2.5 right there on the threshold. Same thing with the low frequency enhancer, 2.5. High frequency, 2.5. No, I'm not trying to be that generic and simple. It literally works best. The expander gate is up about 2 notches from the very bottom, 1.75 to 1 ratio. But again, watch this red light. Right, as soon as I turn it to that point, when I'm silent, at the first indication of it being red is where you want it to be. And then about -7, -8 on the output gain, and there you go. Those are my ultimate settings for this SM7B with the DBX 286S. So let me know how it works for you. Hopefully this helped. Hopefully this is a roadmap and it guides you in the right direction. And hopefully you understand more about how the sound is sculpted and created with this processing, what you can do with it, also hopefully what not to do with it in certain situations. Thanks for checking out Home Studio Pro. Subscribe to this channel if this content helped you. Also, thumbs up on this video if you liked it. I'll see you next time.